Burning questions.
Insightful answers.
Listener's choice.
With Clement Manyatela.
All right, so on our Listener's Choice feature this morning, we are looking at... So we are entering an era. Let me say this first. We're entering... In fact, we are right in the middle of an era of misinformation. And I think there's a responsibility that we have with platforms we have, and that includes your platform, whatever it is, to be able to demystify things and separate lies and fake news from facts, whether we like those facts or not. I'm saying that because I've actually just watched a clip on Twitter of Elon Musk where he was confronted with the truth because he's been spreading misinformation about many other things. But in this case, the clip I saw, it was him talking about how there was $50 million of condoms that were sent to Hamas. That is not true. But that's a guy who owns X. That's a guy who literally is running America. You must go check out the clips of the press briefing he and Trump had yesterday in the Oval Office. Trump is sitting on a chair. He's there with his little boy, his child, and he's acting as though Trump has invaded that place, doesn't belong there. It's a circus. The point I'm trying to make is he lied about that. So a journalist went and fact-checked, and they were able to prove, I think he's also checked it himself, Elon Musk, that the $50 billion worth of condoms were actually sent to Mozambique. They were not sent to Hamas. So we hear these things and we believe them. That's so dangerous. Because sometimes as a society, we don't spend time doing our own research. Whatever Clement says, you take it. Whatever Elon, whatever Ramaphosa says, Trump says. And I think we need to get to a point where, especially in this time we find ourselves in as a world, we need to take time to do our own research and read and understand things. And that is why we've decided to have a conversation on our Listener's Choice feature today about farm murders. Because that's another impression that has been created. And our expert will tell us whether that is true or not. We are not experts. But there's an impression that is created here that the people who are killed in the farms, if they are white, then that's racially motivated. They were racially targeted. But is that really the case? I've had the National Police Commissioner more than twice on this show to address this issue, but still, there are people who are not getting it. So maybe if we bring in an independent analyst, someone who's written a book or has looked at the crime stats, maybe they'll hear that. I don't know. But I feel we have a responsibility to have these conversations. So if you've got questions around farm murders, and whether or not even these kind of murders are racially motivated, I would like you to join this conversation. If you've got legitimate questions to understand, give us a call on 011-883-0702. The WhatsApp line is 0727021702. Professor Rudolf Zinn is a research professor at the University of Limpopo, is joining us on the line. Prof, thank you so much for making time. Good morning.
Good morning, sir, and thank you for inviting me as a guest.
So let's just start with farm murders. From the numbers you've looked at, the research you've done, are these farm murders racial?
No. Let me explain why I say no. I did a study in 2008 on so-called house robberies, but it was limited to Gauteng correctional centers only. And during that study of the house robbers, I found that 22% of them were involved in farm attacks as well. So recently, over the last 5 years, I've done an empirical study where I visited most of the correctional facilities in the Free State, where most of the farms, industrial farms are, and I interviewed 30 incarcerated offenders of farm attacks. And the simple answer is it's all about the money. Now, it's very important to understand that the Free State Agricultural Union is keeping very good record of the farm attacks. They send somebody to go and visit all of these farm attacks. Dr. Jane Bass, she's in charge of that division. And she concurs with me, and she's done so publicly a number of times, that robbery is all about money. Because KwaZulu-Natal has got a similar agricultural union that also collect data. They say exactly the same. So when I interviewed these incarcerated offenders, I posed 122 questions to them. And I asked the question about, is it political driven? Is it race driven? Now, some of these respondents were stunned by this question. They said, but we are there for the money. If we know somebody's dealing in cash, that is our main target. We need cash or jewelry, because firearms, etc., can be easily traced. So it's not even all farmers that are targeted, and that you will see when the Free State's stats analysis as well. It's those farmers who have cash on hand at the farmhouse. Now, some of the farm attackers told me they are the tax collectors. They said they've found, or they believe, that these farmers who only deal in cash on the farm are avoiding paying tax. Whether that's true or not, I cannot confirm by not putting the money in the bank. But they can see over time, people who work for the farmer would see this person is selling, let's say, cattle or fruit or whatever from the farm. There's a lot of cash coming in. They see the cash, but they don't see the farmer going to the bank. Or when it's time to pay out wages, this farmer doesn't go to town to go and withdraw wages. He comes out of the house, or she comes out of the house with cash. So cash is the common denominator in all of it. Now, the racial issue. They say to me, and this was in home invasion exactly the same as in farm attacks, they need to intimidate the victim as much as possible so that they can get what they want and leave as soon as possible. Now, in home invasions, they typically would have to leave within 10 minutes because it's a build-up area, alarm systems might be triggered, etc. But at the farms, they know they've got better control over the crime scene. They would tie, for example, a wire around the fence or the gate to the farm, and they've got much more time. But they are concerned about the ability of the farming communities, farmers, to defend themselves with firearms, because the people who work there would confirm, even the children and the wife and so on would target practice with a firearm. So they go in bigger numbers for that reason. So it's usually typically an average 8 people that would go for a farm attack versus 4 in a house robbery. So you can now immediately see the violence is going to be double in any case. And then the time is longer. But there's a clear, two of the most intelligent respondents that I spoke to in farm attacks, I asked them the racial question. They said, but why would I go and commit a crime and I might face 25 years in prison, and somebody must by deduction infer that this was a political motivated or race motivated crime? I could have joined just in any political party and then voiced that. So they even have difficulty with the fact to understand. Okay. Now, politics, I can also briefly just maybe answer that question if you want to.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. I just want us to look at security as well, Prof, because
Sure.
In the conversations that I've had with the National Police Commissioners, we always looked at security, and they say, when you look at even farm attacks, is people choose to do this because they know that the response time is also not quick with police, because these places, like these farms, are far from like the police station that is in town, for instance. So they become targets because the criminals themselves know that we can get there. We can quickly do this and we can survive and escape before we are caught. That's if they escape any response from the farm owner or the farm workers. But they know they can quickly escape because there is a problem just generally with rural crime and the lack of infrastructure, no police stations close by. How big of a factor is that even in rural crime or these so-called farm attacks?
It is a factor, but it's not the determining factor. The determining factor is, if there are 8 people, is it worth committing this crime, taking the risk of going for 25 years to prison, because in 77% of home invasions and farm attacks, they get information from somebody that's on the inside, so I have to share the loot with that person, and then they calculate how much each one is going to get, and they decide on that basis whether they're going to target a specific farm. So, yeah, the response is a problem, but with the current study that we are doing, we are adding a chapter on farm communities that's been able to organize themselves in a proper farm watch. They look after everyone, black, white, doesn't matter what you are, where you live. And there's a very successful model that is being used where the farmers themselves and the residents take responsibility for policing. And it's a very important factor to understand.
Yeah.
That the policing developed many decades or centuries ago where farmers were dealing with crime. They had to then do policing on their own.
Yeah.
It didn't work out well, so they appointed people on their behalf, and they became the agents, and later they became the police. But the basics of it is we as communities should take responsibility first for making our environment safe, and then the police can additionally support.
Absolutely. So how many people did you interview, Prof, when you wanted to understand whether really race is what is the driver behind these crimes?
Okay. In all of these studies, I always interview 30 respondents. The minimum in this type of study internationally is 15. I always double it. And you need to understand that what we have found with the home invasions, I haven't done the calculations, farm attacks as well, is that the people that I've spoken to, they admitted that on average they had committed 105 serious violent crimes between the ages of 13 to about 23, for which they've not been convicted. So even though they only speak to 30, you need to calculate and then add the fact that they were involved in many acts.
How old are the people they normally attack?
They normally attack.
Yeah, so how old so when they go to let's say attack a farm, do they normally check that, okay, what's the age of the people on the farm? Because I imagine if they're old, then they become so-called easy targets because you know that we can overpower them in some way. Do they consider that from the conversations you had with them?
They do, but there's a very interesting thing that came out here. Is it doesn't matter what the age is, if there's sufficient funds in that farmhouse, they would just increase their own numbers to accommodate that. But what the interesting thing for me was, I asked them, but why are the elderly people who are retired and still living on the farm, why are they attacked? And what surprised me is they said, well, from where they come from, people usually would, over time, would collect money as a retirement fund for themselves. They are not aware of pension funds and investment funds and so on that these farmers are now living on. And then they would watch these elderly people and they see, but they still live on a farm, they've got a good vehicle and so on, and then they believe that that money is somewhere in the house. And then they would go after the older people because they believe that they're hiding money somewhere in the house.
Yeah, sure. Let me go to some listeners, Prof. I want the listeners to join this conversation. If you've got a question, you've got an input, give us a call on 011-883-0702 or send a WhatsApp on 072-702-1702. Let's start with you, Tsulu, who's calling us from Montana in Pretoria. Good morning.
Good morning. I just want to ask, just for interest sake, how many of these attacks are revenge attacks? Because, for example, there's this misconception. How can I use the word? There's this notion that sometimes farmers don't treat their employees well. So I wanted to find out how many of these are revenge attacks.
Yeah, that's a great question there, Tsulu. Thank you so much for asking that. There's also a WhatsApp voice note here that also is asking almost a similar question.
Hi, Clement. It's Mongezi in Joburg. Two of the things that come up in these farm attacks are that one, it's an inside job. How true is that, where either somebody in the family or a worker is responsible for getting these attackers into that farmstead, and the other is how often is it a, call it, family sort of related issue or attack where it's somebody who's related to the person who's being attacked, who sends the attackers in. And I suppose I said two, but it's three. But the third one is how often is it that it's people who have no idea about what happens in that farm who attack that farm. Thanks, it's Mongezi.
Yeah, thank you, Mongezi. Prof?
Okay, revenge, it's around about 5% of them that is motivated by revenge. But the revenge needs to be fully unpacked as well. I, for example, interviewed one that said revenge. I asked him why. He said, well, he came on a Monday morning to work. He was still intoxicated. He drove the tractor. He damaged the tractor. Disciplinary hearing, was found guilty and was dismissed. 6 months later, he came back and in a revenge attack and carried out the farm attack. So as far as revenge is concerned, with even home invasion, we found it to be very low. It's not the main one. The inside job, whether somebody is on the inside is giving information, yes, that is true. The majority of the cases, they say it's too dangerous for them to go into a house where they don't know what security is available, what animals are kept inside the house, which is a very important deterrence factor for them. So 77% of them would only go if they have inside information. So 23% would then just randomly go, but that's usually where they see the luxury vehicles that the person would drive, and that would deduct then that the person might have money. So how often family members are involved? I have one case in the farm attack, but it wasn't a family member that was sent to come and commit the farm attack. In this case, it was the lady working at the farm who informed her brother about a large amount of money inside, and she agreed that she would, during the attack, she will be severely beaten up so that nobody would link her to this crime. This lady was ended up in hospital. She was willing to go that far to not to be incriminated or be a suspect. So how, with no idea of what is happening, like I said, it's about only 23%, but then they are very, very, very careful in how they do these farm attacks or house robberies. They typically would walk around the house. They keep it under observation for up to 2 weeks. They learn the routine of everyone, and immediately before the house entry, farm or residential, they walk around the house. They look for the smallest little window to break open. And the timing of these attacks are very important. It's the highest rate of taking place between 5 and 7 in the morning, and from 5 to about 11 o'clock at night, because they say they know that the alarm systems are then not activated. And that's where the number of small dogs inside the house play a major role. They say once the dogs start barking, they would warn the people inside, and then they would not commit the crime. So they choose these times when people are awake, the doors are not locked, and people are watching television as they cover to get in. And that is a significant number of them that follow this modus operandi.
Okay, so we obviously have a general problem of violence in this country. The last time I checked the statistics, I think, in fact, on AfriForum's own numbers, they were putting farm murders at some point at 46. I think that was in the space of a specific period. I must just remember it. And I compared that, for instance, with how many people die in just Khayelitsha, for instance, in the Western Cape. And there are more people who die in that area than with all the farm murders or the farmers that die in a year, for instance, or in a particular period. So when you look at the comparisons, Prof, because there's so many people who get murdered every year. We have a general problem of crime. It's become a crisis. It's been a long time now. I mean, when you compare how many people get murdered in the farms compared to how many people die in even gang infested areas or just generally in other areas? What do you see? What do the numbers tell you?
Okay. We've seen over the last 5 years an increase in murder of about 30% nationally. It's a shocking figure. It's 27,621 for last year that the police reported. So it's an average of 75 murders per day in South Africa. The robberies with aggravating circumstances, now this is typically a farm attack where somebody is not killed. In general, where all of the robberies, house robberies, business robberies and so on, it's 418 per day, and it gives you a total of 150,000 per year, which is a huge concern because it used to, it leveled off at about 144, it's now gone up. The police, murder on police, if you want to compare that to the farm attacks, remember at the time the farming union said it's more dangerous to be a farmer than police officers that were murdered at that time. About 50 police officers were murdered per year. Now we see it's gone to up to 111. Now let's compare it with what the stats are that some of the civil organizations have published on behalf of the farming community. They say the number of farm murders in 2023 was 49. So one a week, more or less. Less than 1 week, but 49. Then the farm attacks are 296 per year. Now that's my biggest problem. If you look at the crime stats which the police do present, the top 30 police stations in South Africa where the most murders are committed are in informal settlements in very poor communities, not in the rural areas where the most farms are. And I've got a problem with how the information is conveyed. You said correctly in the beginning, misinformation, but there is also, in crime, we also always have to consider two things. It's the actual crime number and then the perceived threat. Because if you continuously read in the newspaper about farm attacks, then you believe that is the prevalent crime in South Africa, whereas when you look at the real stats, you see something different. Now I see that one of the leading farm unions in South Africa have changed from saying it's similar to a risk or even higher risk than police. They are now talking about farm murders can no longer be considered merely as crime, and I'm reading from the website, but as terrorism and sabotage. Now, I believe there's an international team that they've now employed to prove this, but my problem with that is, recently in one of the leading online platforms, it was shown that about 10,000 young farmers are considering leaving this country. Why? Because these farming unions have been telling the newspapers who are just happy to publish this, that farm attacks is taking place because in every newspaper that I read in Afrikaans, on the second or third page, you will see a farm attack. But there's nothing about the house robberies, which is in its 20,000s. The murders, that is 27,000.
Yeah.
So how can you go to terrorism and sabotage if they succeed? Because they call it as a war. They're now saying a war. And if you take our legislation into account in South Africa, if it is a war, where the Defence Act comes into play.
Yeah. Prof, we've got to leave it there. Thank you so much for making time for us.